Crazy Damn Canadians,
Yeah.
episode 30. Gillian Roberts, you have had a hell of a couple of years. And we're going to use this episode as an opportunity to talk about that. But before we do so, I just want to say welcome to Crazy Damn Canadians. It's an honor to have you here. And how did you end up in Prince George? Because you're not originally from Northern BC.
No, I'm from London, Ontario, and which is in Southern Ontario, about 2 hours from Toronto.
So near the border?
Yeah, it's like, there's that little part of Ontario that comes out the bottom there. It's in there, kind of between like Lake Erie and Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, kind of nestled in between a couple of Great Lakes there. So
awesome.
lots of beaches.
Is there 5
around.
Great Lakes in total?
Is there 5? Yeah.
I think there's 5,
yeah. So then I went to university in Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is on another Great Lake, Lake Superior, up at the top of Ontario. And my now husband, he graduated before me, and he got a job out here in Prince George doing forestry. So then when I graduated, I was like, okay, that's where I'm moving. Moved to Prince George. We kind of thought maybe we'd live here for a couple years, and then we would go find somewhere different if this place didn't quite work for us or suit our needs. And we've just completely fallen in love with it. Been here for 8 years now. Love the community. It's absolutely perfect for us, and we've just completely fallen in love with it, and I don't see us leaving anytime soon.
Awesome. So when you're Googling Prince George and doing your research, I hear it's a very, very tough place to Google because you actually get Prince George out of the royal family, not necessarily right away.
I didn't experience that, but when I was Googling Prince George, not a lot of positive stuff comes up, at least it didn't when I was Googling it years ago. And
it's around 2013.
Yeah, a lot of crime rates. So I was a little concerned at first, but I just kind of thought, you know what, let's go give it a try. And I'm glad I came in with that open mind because I was like, I love this place. It's great. It's, and it just keeps getting better and better. And they're putting so much work into the city, and it's just, I love living here. So
yeah. And you grew up in a very athlete-orientated family. Your parents were into running and even owned a store? Yeah,
my dad owned a running store when I was little. He owns a New Balance store now. And then my mom was a marathon runner, so before I was born, that was like her profession. She made a living running marathons for a little while before she then became a teacher, and then I'm a teacher too, so I really did not fall far from the tree.
Yeah, and you got to witness that from an early age. Your parents being at different events, whether it's work-related or actually as a competitor, and you become a product of your environment, right?
Oh, I'm fully a product of my environment because as a kid, I was in the stroller at track meets and cross-country meets, and as a little kid, I was running around the track when my mom was coaching track and cross-country. So I was just fully immersed into that world, and then I grew up watching my dad train for masters track and masters cross country, and he's in his 60s now, and he still tries to race a little bit sometimes here and there. So yeah, it took me until I was maybe 21, 22 to beat him in a race finally. I worked my tail off for that one.
But you're also a school teacher, so if you were to look back at your childhood, and how old are you now?
I'm 30.
You're 30 now. And if you were to look back, say, 25, 20 years ago, and just being part of that environment that's all about body movement and being active and being outdoors and setting goals and chasing those goals and then accomplishing them, how do you see that with kids today, where it's a very digitally distracted world that we live in right now, and a lot of kids and adults are sedentary and they might not be as excited about body movement? Do you notice a difference between kids that might grow up in families that don't have body movement as a focus compared to families like your own?
I think that, it really depends on the family, because I see kids that come from families who are active in the community or are involved in sports or just other extracurricular communities or environments, and then those kids are still very invested in those activities. So I think that if families are putting in the effort to get their kids involved in stuff and try different things and just be active, it definitely rubs off, for sure. Because you can see the difference in, kids who say they did nothing on the weekend versus kids who say, oh, we did this and this and this and this and this, and, and their parents are getting them out of the house and doing things together. Because that kind of stuff sticks, and it definitely stuck with me because, I think that just being involved in that lifestyle of athletics as a kid and watching my parents do it, like I wanted to do that too.
And you started competing early. And you started competing, was it running that you started competing in early?
Well, I ran a lot when I was a kid because that was my parents' main sport. And then just because of my own interest, I got into swimming. So my parents weren't swimmers. That was just something I wanted to try. And then because of my running background, and then I had, formal swimming training. Then when I was about 19, I decided, let's try a triathlon. And I really had to just learn how to bike. And I just didn't have much experience in that before, other than just like biking around the block, being a kid. And I went and tried my first triathlon, and I totally fell in love with it.
And so was that sprint or Olympic distance?
I started with the Olympic.
Wow.
I think most people probably start with the sprint, but I think because I already had swimming and running background, I figured like that was just the appropriate challenge level for me and the experience I already had.
And so the Olympic distance is 10,
it's 1,500 meter swim, 40K bike, 10K run. Yeah.
So nice little stepping stone to the half Ironman.
Yeah, and then so I did the Olympic for a couple of years, and then I started training with a club in Ontario, a triathlon club, and they encouraged me to go try the half Ironman. And when I tried the half Ironman, I feel like I kind of fell in love with triathlon all over again. It was like, I was like, this is my distance. I loved it so much. I wanted to just invest more time into it. I was having so much fun doing it. And I like racing, but I also just love to train. And I love being part of an athletic endurance community. I just find the endurance community, they're always so fun and welcoming, and they're always just like the happiest people. They have like the most endorphins, right? They're always just so fun and welcoming and like lovely.
And everyone's encouraging each other. Right?
Oh, totally. And I'm working in that group. When I trained with that group in Ontario for a little bit, like I learned so much because you'd be training with these people that have been doing it for years, and you're just watching what they're doing, trying to take it in, trying to learn, asking questions, and everyone's like so eager to teach you everything that they know, and I learned so much about it. And then I did 3 half Ironmans.
So all 70.3, which is the distance in miles. But if you were to break that,
70.3 miles is the distance for the half Ironman.
So if you were to break that down into kilometers, what would the distances be?
Because we're Canadian, we're crazy apparently. So the 70.3 Ironman is 1.8 kilometer swim. So not much of a jump between the Olympic and the half Ironman
swim-wise,
swim-wise, not much difference. And then it's 90K bike. That one's the hardest one for me. And then the half marathon run, the 21.1 kilometer run.
Isn't it interesting how any triathlete you talk to or any athlete you talk to, out of the 3 disciplines, swimming, running, biking, it feels like everyone always has 2 strong points.
Right.
And then there's the one weakness. I feel like in my case it's swimming. And I feel like
that's common.
I feel like that's very common. But biking, usually that's the one discipline that people actually really do well in.
I find like a lot of the triathletes that I've known, a lot of them will come from a running or biking background, and that's what will get them into then triathlon. Like that's their stepping stone. And fewer of them will come from a swimming background. However, it still happens, right? So I just was in this unique position where I was coming from a running and swimming background, and that biking was the one I had to learn. So and swimming's very technical, so I felt very lucky that I already had some of that under my belt. So
and it's fantastic. I just saw you at the pool last week
the other day,
the aquatic center as part of the 6 a.m. class, and so it's amazing to see that you're still putting in those laps and that dedication to the water. After you found your passion for half Ironmans and just triathlon in general, you had some pretty big plans to compete. And this was after that you moved out all the way out west to British Columbia, ended up in Prince George with your husband Tori, and you had some plans, but then an obstacle got in the way.
Foiled.
So let's talk about that because it's just looking at your story and knowing that you're a cancer survivor who blogged about the entire experience. Like you were the epitome of a well-trained athlete, and then in 2018, something happened during a run. Was it BMO? Was it the?
That was 2019.
Okay.
So yeah, so I actually haven't raced Ironman or raced at all in my triathlon since 2016 was my last time I raced triathlon.
So it's been over 5 years.
Yeah, so the time has gotten away from us here because there's been many, obstacles in the way. So in 2017, I actually chose to step away from it for a year. I had raced pretty hard for kind of 3 to 4 years, and I was just like, you know what, we're gonna take a summer and we're gonna do some other things. We got a dog, we bought a house, did some traveling.
But also very smart to give the body
to take breaks.
an off season. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I thought I was being very smart. And then I thought okay, I'm gonna come back in 2018. So in 2018, my plan was to go back and do the Whistler Half Ironman, which you've done. I still haven't done it yet.
Yet is the key word. Absolutely.
Hopefully we'll get to do it. But I signed up for it in 2018. And then at the end of 2017, at the end of that kind of break year, I started feeling very ill. I was just a little bit nauseous, and then I was experiencing some really awful bloating.
So was this all the time, or was it while performing athletic endeavors?
Well, and I didn't stop training. I wouldn't train to the extent that I would have trained in a competition year, but
still
I
very
still
active.
was maintaining a lot of my activity just because I like to train, and most of my friends are people that I train with, so I was still just doing sort of my regular stuff. No, all the time. I started to feel bloated, and it would never go away, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So then at the very end of 2017, we discovered that I had a ovarian tumor on my left ovary. And then at the beginning of 2018, I think it was February, I went, had surgery here in Prince George, got that removed. We discovered that it was benign at that point. So I did my 6 weeks of bed rest, and then I think I didn't do any physical activity for maybe 10 weeks. And then once I did my bed rest and kind of recovered from my surgery, I went back to trying to live my life. I went back to work. I went back to slowly stepping back into training, because I then deferred that 2018 Whistler race. I deferred it to 2019.
Right.
So then I was going to go back in 2019. So then I kept training, and then I went to go race the BMO Half Marathon in May 2019 in preparation for that race in the summer of 2019.
Yeah.
And at that point when I went to the race, for all intents and purposes, I thought I was completely fine because I had been training, I had been fine, I was ready to race. I kind of was prepared to do pretty well. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a PB, but at that point I was like, I'm coming back from surgery. I'm just happy to be here. Let's see what I can do.
So you're motivated and feeling confident.
I was just pumped to be back, right? I was like, I've been through this experience. Let's go do this race. Even if I, don't do as well as I think I can do without what I experienced the year before, I'm happy to be here. I was just grateful for that. And I was on a really good pace. I was very proud of myself because I was like, oh man, I'm not only here, but I'm doing pretty solid.
Nice.
And then in the second half, everything went downhill. I just started feeling nauseous, and I kind of crawled my way through the end of that race.
And you still finished the 21.1 kilometers?
Because I'm stubborn, yes.
Nicely
Some people
done.
call it stubborn. I call it determined. Call it what you want. I was not going to give up. Yeah. But I then was really ill for a couple days after that, which was not normal. So I went and got an ultrasound, and I got an ultrasound pretty quickly because of my history. They got me in pretty fast. And then they discovered I had a tumor on my other ovary. So that was pretty devastating because after what I'd been through the year before, I kind of thought this is behind me.
Yeah.
I had put it behind me. I was ready to move on.
Yeah, especially with that BMO half marathon probably being one of many goals that you laid out for yourself, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so it was just the rug being fully pulled underneath me. And it was worse than the first time because after going through the experience and then rebuilding yourself back up and then having it again, I just kind of thought is this my life now? When does this end?
Yeah.
And then I had to end up going down to Vancouver for surgery for that. Because it was the second one, they just kind of wanted more specialty people working on it. Went down to Vancouver, got surgery, got basically everything taken out. So my one remaining ovary out, my uterus, my cervix, they took the appendix out as well because I made it very clear that I do not want to have surgery ever again. So they took it all. And in that surgery, they biopsied it, and that one ended up being cancerous. So, and the reason then they had to take everything else as well is because some of the cancer cells started to spread onto the uterus. So that was a pretty devastating thing to wake up to.
Especially being so young, because you would have been around 27,
I was
26?
I was 28.
28,
So
okay.
I was 26 on the first surgery. I would have been 28 by the time the second one came around.
Because ovarian cancer, correct me if I'm wrong, is very rare for females under 40.
Yes. So the average age for ovarian cancer is 63.
That's right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
usually after menopause, right?
yes,
Typically,
exactly, because it's very hormonal, right? And so the type of tumor that I had, both of them, they're called mucinous tumors. Get a little scientific here, but it basically just means they're filled with mucus, and they can get really, really big, and they grow really rapidly. So
you caught yours in the early stages then?
I did, but they were the first one was huge, which is why I was feeling that bloating the first time, because it had gotten so big, right? They told me it was the size of a football.
Wow.
Right, and because it's squishy, it was pushing on my bladder.
Yeah,
and
so frequent urination.
Yeah, I was going to the washroom all the time. I would get full really fast because it was pushing on my stomach. I could never feel like I was not hungry because I would eat 2 bites and feel full, but still hungry.
So essentially chronic discomfort.
Oh yeah, it was awful. And then, so we got that diagnosis the day of my surgery. And then I came back to Prince George about a week later after being in the hospital for a little bit, and pretty much went into chemo right away when I got home.
So that was at the BC Cancer Agency for the North.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's pretty new. I mean, the BC Cancer Agency for the North would have, opened in 2013?
Yeah, 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
So not even a decade old yet by the time that you were there.
So, I mean, the good thing about that, and this is what people talk about all the time too, when I talk to cancer survivors who've been there before, but maybe had to do some treatment here and some treatment in Vancouver, just because we didn't always have these resources, that now we have these resources here. So I went to chemo once every 28 days, and I could live at home, not have to go to Vancouver all the time. The amount of comfort that could have given me versus having to go down to Vancouver or Kamloops or wherever was huge.
And that's so critically imperative for you to bring up, because it wasn't long ago where if you were living in the north, whether it's Prince George or any other northern community, you are taking care of all the travel expenses and all the accommodation expenses and all the hassle of getting down to Vancouver, getting treatment there every 28 days.
Yeah.
And you're basically on repeat doing that once a month.
Yeah.
The fact that you're able to do that in your hometown, in your own backyard, it must have facilitated what was a very difficult process for sure. But even if it made it a little bit easier,
exactly,
that's where we have to, I guess, find a bit of gratitude in a very, very difficult situation. When was it that you just decided that you wanted to blog about your cancer experience and the chemo and the recovery and as a young athlete yourself, give hope to other people that may be going through something similar?
Well, I had been doing the social media thing for a while. I sort of started after my first surgery, kind of mostly to motivate myself, to give myself some I don't know, accountability for this recovery journey. And I just wanted to document it a little bit. And I just thought it would be fun to do it in that way, to share it with people.
Yeah, the goal-orientated side of you.
Sure. Yeah, but so it sort of already was doing sort of the social media aspect of it, and having fun sharing and having fun connecting with people. And then a follower of mine, I wish I could remember who it was, I really don't remember, but someone who was already following me when I was continuing to share about my diagnosis and continuing to share about chemo and just the roadblocks and struggles and just everyday things that I was dealing with as a patient. Someone said to me, these posts, I'm really enjoying reading them. I wish they were longer. and they said, have you ever considered blogging? And that was actually what gave me the idea. I was like, that's a really good idea. It's
the light bulb going off.
And I never thought about it. So I just kind of, whatever topics I was feeling were on my mind, I would take them and just turn them into a blog post. And then that's kind of how the blog was born. And it's been really therapeutic because I just felt, because I started it around maybe round 3, round 4 of my chemo. I was a current patient when I decided to start writing. And there's just a lot going on for you in those moments, and a lot that you can't always figure out how to explain in a good way that like everyone's going to understand. And especially as a young cancer patient, because I would go talk to my friends, and my friends were all fantastic. They listened to me, they're supportive, but no one really gets it. Because I wouldn't want them to get it, because I don't want them to go through that as well. But it's not like you can, you're in your 60s and a bunch of your friends are relating to your experience because they've also maybe been there themselves or had similar experiences to kind of relate to yours. They're all looking at it from the outside, not understanding what that could be like for you as a 28-year-old, right? So I just needed an outlet, and that was a really good outlet for me to sit down and even just make sense of my feelings. You have so many feelings and things in your mind that are just making you angry and upset, and you just like have to figure out how to process them.
Rather than letting them bottle up too, right?
Yeah, and just sitting down and just writing about something that I was feeling was a way for me to get it out. But then it was a way to get it out to the world, and then people would connect with that. And at first it was for me, it was fully for me, and then people started messaging me. And I got so many great messages of people connecting to it, or just being inspired by it, or learning something new. And I had, kind of right near the beginning, maybe I was 2 or 3 blog posts in, I had someone message me and said, my mom had ovarian cancer when she was, in her 50s or 60s, and, now she's passed, not because of ovarian cancer, but she's just passed of old age. And she said to me, she never told me anything. She never wanted to talk about it. She never wanted to talk about how she felt. She never wanted to talk about the experience. She never wanted to share anything with me. She just wouldn't open up. That just wasn't a strength that she had.
And that could be normal for a lot of cancer
100%.
patients, right? Yeah.
That's normal for anybody.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like sharing their thoughts and feelings.
It's a difficult conversation.
It's hard. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was a strength that I had, something that I was good at, that I was good at articulating my feelings and making sense of them, even though it took writing them down to make sense of them sometimes. But that was a strength that I had, that sharing was something I was good at, and it was something I was comfortable with.
Yeah, which is exactly why I feel so many people, whether they may have been a former cancer patient themselves, current or not, just going through some hard times, resonated with what you were saying.
Yeah, and I just thought like that just drove it home for me, like, oh man, like I owe it to those people who won't or can't speak about this experience to speak about mine, to help other people understand, right? Because this person was like, I think I might have this little window now because of your words into maybe what my mom's experience could have been like, even though it would have been very different than mine. It's just this little glimpse of maybe what this person could have gone through because they didn't want to share it with her, right? And then, but I feel like a lot of the things I write about are very specific to me, but a lot of people connect with them for very, very different reasons. Like they'll connect with them from a very different experience that they've had, but they'll be drawing lines to their own experiences from mine and from the words that I'm using to talk about my experience.
Yeah. So in terms of the response, did you have people not just from British Columbia, but from all areas that were reaching out, that were reading your blog posts and letting you know how they felt about them? Like,
totally,
Was this response right away, or did it gradually build up throughout?
It's over time. I already had a little bit of a following on Instagram, and Instagram was helping me gain more eyes on my blog. That was kind of the main vehicle that got more people to my blog.
That's one of the positive powers of social media.
When
you're spreading messaging like that.
There's a lot of negative to social media, but if you're on social media being positive, it's hugely positive, because I have connected with and talked with and like met over online so many people that I never would have met And those people who have benefited from my story and my content, they never could have seen that without this vehicle that is social media, right? These people from all over the world, and we can connect and help each other and support each other, and I can inspire them and they can inspire me, and you know, like, I never would have met these people otherwise. And it's hard to meet young cancer survivors in Prince George, a town under 100,000, you know, but in the whole world, there's a lot of us.
Yes, there is.
You know, and we have ways of connecting. So that's, you know, the positive for me of social media.
For sure. And if you look at social media, there's a lot of complaints about it right now. There's a lot of COVID fatigue. There's probably more politics on social media right now than there's ever been. And then there's this metaverse thing that who knows what that's going to involve.
Yeah.
But I feel like it is what you think it's going to be. If you're constantly telling yourself that social media is full of negativity and it's a bad place and it's drama or whatever, that's probably what you're going to find as soon as you log in, right?
Sure.
But if you think about, say, the experience that you had and knowing that there's beautiful ways to connect with other human beings that would not have been possible without the existence of social media, or just thinking about the numerous other positive aspects and characteristics of social media, then that's probably what you're going to find.
Right. But that's mindset too, though, right? Like, that's the kind of mindset that, you know, as someone who's experienced really awful things in their life, mindset that you bring to everything else is the mindset you bring to your life. So like, if you wake up in the morning and you're like, it's going to be an awful day, the set of cards I've had handed to me are the worst and I'm never going to get anywhere, like, I could have gone that route because the set of cards I was handed could have sent me in that direction.
It would have been easier to go that route.
It would have been easier to go that route, right? You could just like live in the dumps and just, you know, be living in that world forever. But it really sucks to live in that world. It feels awful and it's not fun.
It compounds an already negative situation.
Yeah, but like, or you can choose to have the mindset where you wake up every day and you're like, okay, I've got some hard things on my plate. How do I acknowledge them? How do I deal with them? How do I process them? And then how do I choose to have a mindset today that will serve me for a positive way, right? And like, that's why I choose to keep doing things that bring me joy, like exercise. And I choose to keep working because it brings me joy and I enjoy it. It's stressful and hard sometimes, but in the end, it adds positive to my life, right? And then I choose to be social and enjoy my friend group and, you know, like, spread positivity in the world because I want that to come back to me too. Yeah. And what we put out, we will get back. So if you approach anything with the right mindset, right, it could go either direction. You have to choose what direction you want it to go. And
you approached chemotherapy with an incredibly powerful mindset, which is a very difficult task because not everyone can do that. So I'm just looking at dates here. Was it November 28th of 2018 that you went for your first chemo? Because I know you just did a 2-year anniversary post.
2019. So
2019.
That would have been my last day of chemo.
Yes.
Yeah, I did just do a post about that recently. About how been 2 years since I'd finished.
That's right. So
because this is a solid two years of hair growth right here.
Nice. Well, the hair looks great.
Thank you.
It looks phenomenal. What I find very inspiring is the fact that you actually still trained during chemotherapy.
Yeah, There's
your last.
There's that post that you're talking about.
November 28th, 2019. Awesome job.
Dates like that get burned into your head for sure. I'll never forget some of those ones. But and trained during chemo. I was active during chemo because when you're an athlete, I mean, training is very focused, right? Training has a goal to it. Training has maybe a little bit more purpose. During chemo, I just needed to be active. And when you're doing chemo, they really encourage you to be active, just to help with recovery, also just for mental and physical health, right? They really, really encourage you.
But for some people, that might be a walk around the block.
Oh, totally.
So you're on your bike, and you're in the pool, and you're going for jogs with friends.
And I mean, those activities look very different than they do now and very different than they did before. But those were the things that I wanted to do because that was my world, right? Doing those things is who I am as a person. So I couldn't stop doing them because I was already in this place where I was isolated and sitting around every day feeling awful. So if I could get out for a 30-minute, you know, barely getting my feet off the ground run with my friend, like that's what I would look forward to like all week.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, okay, I get to go with my friend, I get to hang out, I get to go for a run, get the endorphins going, right? Get some fresh air. Like that is what was going to bring joy to me that day. So, but yeah, like for a lot of cancer patients, they don't care what you do, right? They're like, go for a walk, you know, walk up and down the stairs if you don't want to go outside, go to the gym and walk on the treadmill, like do anything, even like walk around your garden and pick the weeds. They're like, whatever moves your body is what they want you to do. And it's good for your mind, good for your body, you know, and there's days after chemo when you really are down and out from the drugs where nothing much is going to happen.
And motivation's just not there.
Well, motivation, but just physically you just feel awful, right? The drugs really, really make you feel awful, right? Even, and then you're on like the steroids, and then it's also like the anti-nausea drugs that also don't make you feel good, but they help you from being less nauseous.
Those are something you don't hear much about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you taking those readily or?
Yeah. So like chemo has changed a lot, even in the last like 10 years. So they used to have this philosophy where they wanted you to get physically ill when you're doing chemo. And that's just what the chemo drugs make you do, right? But now they want to diminish discomfort as much as possible. So they'll take your chemo. If you did not take the anti-nausea drugs, you'd probably be getting sick a lot. So you hear about people getting sick on chemo. They don't want that anymore. So they'll give you anti-nausea drugs, and if you are getting sick, they'll tell you like, tell us, because we just need to change your anti-nausea drugs so you're not getting sick.
Like up the dosage or?
Up the dosage, sure. Because they're like, they want you to keep food down. They want you to keep nutrition in your body because that's going to keep you strong, right? They don't want you getting sick. And they want to keep you comfortable, right? You're already in so much discomfort. Why are we putting more discomfort on you by you getting sick every day?
Yeah.
So
that makes complete sense.
so it's just a whole cocktail of all kinds of stuff that the pharmacists have to figure out for you and get them all lined up. So you're taking a lot of stuff.
So when you were going in for chemo treatment, what would that look like? Would it be from the day you arrived, say for your first treatment, how long would you actually be at the BC Cancer Agency for the North? Like how long of a stay would each treatment be?
It would depend on the day because sometimes there's just different complications that get in the way each day. I had a bit of a longer treatment, and every person would be different depending on the prognosis and how often they're coming back.
Okay.
And you know, everyone has different chemo drugs. It's, you know, it's a big puzzle. But I would go, like I said, once every 28 days, and I would go for about a whole day. I would be there from like 8 in the morning to 3 or 4 in the afternoon. It was a full day. It was a full day for me.
Long process.
Yeah, it was a long process. Yeah, I had a couple different ones that I was doing, and then before each different drug, they have to flush you out with the saline, and then they have to give you like Benadryl before. It's a whole process. But honestly, like, this feels weird to say, but I loved going there.
Really?
Like, the chemo sucked. It was awful. But like, the people who work there are just like such rays of sunshine that you walk in there and everyone is your best friend, and they're all so nice, and they all want to talk to you and hang out, and like, you get to know some of the nurses that will treat you, and then they become your friend, and then, you know, like, it's just, you kind of forget that why you're there. I'm also a social person, so I like talking to people. So like, maybe people who are more introverted wouldn't feel that way, but I'm very extroverted. So I would come in and just like chit chat with all the nurses and catch up and hang out, and
You're like the ideal cancer patient. But you also, like, I feel like not enough people in Prince George and Northern British Columbia recognize the world-renowned staff, whether it's an oncologist like Dr. Robert Olson, or whether it's Dr. Stacy Miller, or our good friend James at the Wheel and Wellness. Like, there's so many incredible professional healthcare staff right
totally.
here.
I know.
World leading research right here in
No,
Prince
we're
George.
so
in the
lucky.
north.
Well, and Dr. Rob is leading a lot of that research too.
Absolutely.
And,
We're so lucky to have Dr. Olson in this city.
I know.
He could work
I love that guy.
anywhere in this world. Anywhere. And he chooses Prince George, Northern British Columbia as his destination.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your time in Thunder Bay because that's where you did your master's.
Well, I did my undergrad and then my teaching degree.
Okay, perfect. So the reason why that comes up is because that's actually where Terry Fox ended his Marathon of Hope. After 143 consecutive days of doing a marathon per day, 42.2 kilometers in the Marathon of Hope.
And he stopped in Thunder Bay.
Thunder Bay. And
Have you been to the monument there?
I haven't been. I've never been to Thunder Bay,
but
I'd love to be to that monument.
It's
I took a red eye to St. John's, Newfoundland to go to mile 0 where he started, and the statue there. And
I've been to that one too. It's good too.
It's incredible. I mean, everyone leaves there in tears. It's very emotional. The reason why I think about this is because not only did Terry Fox come to Prince George in 1979, September 1979, which he competed in the PG to Boston Marathon at the time, now Labor Day Classic, but also that this played a large role in his confidence to start the Marathon of Hope the following year. But what also gave him the confidence is when he was in, I think, Royal Columbian Hospital in the Lower Mainland of BC, it was when he was getting his leg amputated, when he witnessed the other cancer patients, a lot of them younger than him. He was 19,
because he would have been in the children's
like
ward as a young man.
And he said that as soon as he saw all the suffering and what these kids were going through, he said he was determined right then and there to do something about it, to raise money. His original goal was $1 million, then it went from $1 for every Canadian, which was around 26 million.
Just kept growing.
It just kept on going, but it was, in his biographies, there's many of them, he'd always refer to how he felt when he saw those other children suffering. Did you, when you were going through your chemo and your cancer treatment, did you see other patients that motivated you in a way to maybe express and articulate your thoughts more in the blog, or even just help with your own scenario, with your own situation?
Well, first of all, I'm always very inspired by Terry Fox, and as a teacher, we talk about him every September, and I do use it as an opportunity to share with my students what I've been through and let them ask questions, and it's always a good experience because they always learn a lot. And but I just feel very inspired by him too, because as a young cancer patient, when I was in my 20s going through cancer, and he was young 20s, and to see that he chose what he chose to do, like I choose to write about it, he chose to run across the country, like the courage, I can't even imagine doing that. That's such a huge undertaking. He's a very impressive guy. But I don't know if I really connected with many cancer patients when I was actually at the center. And I think, honestly, the fact that I didn't motivated me as well, because I would chit chat with some of them sometimes, but I would find that most of them were 30, 40, 50 years older than me. And I never came across another person that I felt really like, okay, I can get this person and they can get me. I just felt like, these people in their 80s who are sitting beside me doing chemo, and their grandchildren are visiting them, and their grandchildren are older than me, and I'm sitting there like, how do I connect with this person? And how do I understand where they're coming from in their experience? And how could they possibly understand what my experience is like? Because they're so different. And that's what inspired me too, because I was like, people need to know what this experience is like. Because if you understand it, you can help people better. And that was, so like part of it was selfish, was like, I want people to understand my experience. Like there's some selfishness there too, but also it's like, I can't expect people to get it. That's an unrealistic expectation. So how can I help them understand? So that was part of it too, but I actually did connect with a girl, I don't know if you know Darcy. She doesn't live in Prince George anymore. She lives in Salmon Arm. She has a nutrition business.
That's right, yeah. She has a very popular Instagram account as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, she's Your Pathway to Happiness.
Yeah, that's right.
I was actually connected with her through some mutual friends, and she's a cancer survivor. She had ovarian cancer when she was 21.
Oh, wow.
So also in her 20s, and I think she's around my age, 30, 31-ish now. So I connected with her, and we sat down and we just instantly became friends. Yeah. Because we could connect about our experiences, being young women with the same kind of cancer similar ages, and she,
what a beacon of inspiration for you.
oh my God, just looking at her and saying, like, here you are 8 years out of cancer, and just looking where she is now with that journey. But then, and I'm saying this because she's told me this, but that the fact that talking to me about my experience when I'm so in it almost kind of helped her retroactively, like, kind of deal with some of the things that she never maybe dealt with at that time because she didn't have someone to talk to. So she's like, I shut a lot of this away, and then now I have someone to talk to who understands it, and now we can kind of support each other even though she's so far out of it.
Yeah.
So
mutually
that was
therapeutic.
Yeah, so that was one person that I definitely connected with that experience.
There's times in life where like people were just meant to meet, and I feel like that exemplifies that perfectly.
I feel like we would have been friends without the cancer because we have a lot of other things in common as well. But that was what brought us together. So it was a good bonding moment.
So who facilitated that? Did she reach out to you? Or?
No, we just, someone that I knew her as well. And then they were like, oh, you got to meet this girl. And she this other person connected us. So then I just set up like a coffee date with her. And we sat there, I think, for like 4 hours the first day. And we just instantly were like, oh my God. Like, then we just talked often.
One of those conversations where you're like, did we just talk for 4 hours?
Yeah. Like, are you my best friend now? Yeah.
We just become best friends.
Yeah.
I like looking back at your situation, I can only imagine what kind of emotional roller coaster you must be going through. And, you know, just to think that, like, were there times where you were scared if you were going to make it or not? Were there times where you thought, what if my health completely evaporates on me?
Yeah. Sometimes when you're just feeling so not alive, you lose hope. But that was just the mindset thing again. Like, you have those dark moments, you do.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard not to. You would be not human if you didn't have the dark moments.
Do you think your athletic background played a role in helping
probably
with the chemo treatment and the recovery? Just because you're always in phenomenal shape, right? And even like the year leading up to everything, you're still competing. You're doing the BMO half marathon in Vancouver. You're still doing half marathons and training, or at least being active every day. And I think that had to play a role in the recovery, a very positive role.
The mindset of it, like just knowing that, like, okay, if I have the right mindset and I choose to put in the work every day, I can get there.
Yeah.
Right? And just like having hope and having faith that it was going to be okay, and having faith in my medical team that I was going to trust them, that what they're doing is going to be the right thing, right? And it's hard to have that faith, but definitely being an athlete helped me have those goal setting and the mindset skills and just the determination and the resilience. You know, but then also maybe just having faith, right? Yeah. Like, you know, I teach at a Catholic school. I am a Catholic person. Like, having that faith background too, of just like knowing that you're gonna believe, and it's gonna pull you through, and whatever's gonna happen is the right thing that's gonna happen. And you know, it makes you angry sometimes too, though. Sometimes it's like, well, why me? Yeah. Why did this happen to me? Why didn't this happen to somebody else? But, I mean, you can go down that spiral all day and you're never going to find answers. Yeah. So,
And, you know, there's a feeling of guilt for other people that are involved in your life as well. If I were to look back at 2019, like, we were both supposed to finish or compete in the Whistler Half Ironman event on July 28th, 2019. And we didn't really know each other at the time, but I remember learning about your story and becoming extremely emotional myself, thinking like, how unfair is it for this young athlete to not be able to compete, not even be able to step on the start line of this swim at Rainbow Park in Alta Lake in Whistler. And I just remember like being so sad, thinking how unfair it was that like there's a feeling of guilt that I could go compete and there is an athlete who is stronger than me in every one of these triathlon disciplines that wasn't able to be there. And that's why it was an honor for me to actually dedicate that Ironman.
I know. I didn't know you that well then, and that's why it was such a shock to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is not what I was expecting.
And that was the Gillian 2020 hashtag. But also, if I were to look back at that period of time, 2019, and if we were to fast forward, like not even, well, just over half a year after that, that's when the world pandemic hit.
Yes.
And you probably have to think about that as well in terms of like, imagine when you first were diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and if you're going through starting your chemo treatment then in the middle of a global pandemic, when you're not allowed visitors, when hospital staff are being stretched to the limits, and there's burnout and there's craziness and it's unpredictable what's going to be the next step. Like, imagine all of that was happening when you were first diagnosed.
I can't imagine what it would be like, and it would be awful. And I did a blog post about that, actually, I think like in May of 2020, kind of a couple months into the pandemic.
Referencing that.
Just like, you know, that cancer does not stop for COVID. And neither does any other medical treatment that's happening, which is why it's so important that we get vaccinated and do all those things, because there's people who, you know, there's hundreds of people, thousands of people diagnosed with cancer every day, right? I don't know the exact number, but you know, those things aren't going to stop just because the hospitals are clogged. Yeah. Right? That's still going to happen. So that's why the hospitals need to be open, so that people who need that treatment can get it. Yeah. Right? Because my cancer journey would be very different if it had happened a year later. And I don't want to think about what that would have been like, because it was already awful. So let's add another layer of, you can't have your family and friends come visit you during chemo, and you can't have people even come visit you in your house because they can't come in to visit you. Like, cancer is already isolating. So to have it being isolated even that more would have been so much harder. Yeah, we just had a couple episodes ago, we had Wes Mitchell and Ivan Paquette on the podcast, and these two gentlemen, they started their Monday night drumming healing sessions when the pandemic first arrived. They went for 47 straight days. Every single night they're doing healing drum circles outside University Hospital of the North. Like, that's almost 7 weeks in a row of every night dedication. And then after that 47-day period, they switched to every Monday night. They're still going strong. They're going tonight. Every week, and they're at the hospital tonight doing their drumming ceremony. And I look at those guys as such community difference makers. And we said it before in the podcast, like citizens of the year for sure of 2021, because they're still there giving people hope. And you see these photos from them drumming outside the hospital with cancer patients or COVID patients that are in their window looking out, where they're not allowed visitors. And it inspires hope and community and love and what humanity should look like, right? Just people helping people instead of, everyone's going to have differences in life and everyone's going to believe in different things, but at the end of the day, all we can do is try to help each other, right? Get through this crazy journey called life. We're all people. And those two guys are absolute heroes to me, Wes and Ivan, what they've done. They're fantastic. I want to switch gears here and talk about the PG Roadrunners, because you play a very, very active role. I'm the vice president at the PG Roadrunners. VP. And how did you get involved? I know obviously you've always had a passion for running athletics, but was it just a natural fit for you to join the organization? I started running with their kind of midweek group maybe 2015, and then the person who was organizing that group, they didn't want to do it anymore, so they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, sure. So that was kind of my window into it. And I started organizing that midweek run, which is now my Wednesday run that I do from the Aquatic Center. And that first year, I think I would have started in 2016. That first year I started in the summer, and then normally they would stop in the wintertime, but I was like, I'm running anyways. I might as well just keep offering it, and if people stop coming, you know, maybe we'll stop for the winter. And what's the response been? It has not stopped yet. Good. So people kept coming that first winter, and I just kept going. So here we are, 6 years later, 5 years later, and we have not missed a Wednesday, unless when we had to shut down for a little bit for COVID, and maybe a smoky forest fire day here and there, but like we've been going strong, and then we've added more group runs as options, just as the club evolves and we just see different needs for different types of group runs. And I've really enjoyed it because it just gives me an opportunity to meet new runners, meet experienced runners, meet everyone in between, and understand the running community. Who are these people? What are they looking for in the running community? How do they need to be supported? Just helps me connect with the running community really well.
Yeah.
So then when we're putting on events, you know, I kind of feel like I have my ear to the ground as far as what the community needs and who these people are.
Yeah. Well,
So-
looking at like the virtual run series, and are you running the social media channels? Because whoever's running the social channels is doing a great job.
The Prince George Roadrunners Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, awesome. Because I see these posts, I'm like, this is
Yeah.
good content,
That's
great
me.
stuff. Yeah. But what inspires me from the Roadrunners is that anybody can join. You know, it's
Yes.
not called the Prince George Elite Roadrunners.
No.
You get beginners and
Yeah.
all walks of life, people that maybe never ran more than a kilometer in their life,
Totally.
right? And
Yeah.
it must be exceptionally rewarding for you, Gillian, to be able to see somebody start out and just
Yes.
watch them gradually
And I've
progress,
seen a lot of
right?
people. I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of people, and I see people who are now like our dedicated people that people look up to as like good runners. Like I've seen them down here. I've seen them come for the first time, barely be able to run a kilometer, and then them get better and better and better and better and better. And then now they're my running partners, right? The people that I run with outside of Run Group, right? Just people I run with because they're my friends.
Yeah.
And they just come so far. But it's very rewarding to encourage people through a sport that you love, right? Because I get to pass on that passion to these people and help them have running in their life and help running be a part of their life. And, you know, like, and the Roadrunners Club has changed a lot since I first joined it. And the main thing that we worked to change was the perception. Because I found that a lot of people weren't coming because their perception of us was that we were all, the Roadrunners, they're too good for me, I'm not good enough, you know.
It can be very intimidating.
Totally.
Even
And
for
I
runners.
absolutely get that. And if they see someone, that person's faster than me, they think that they don't fit in. So we worked really, really hard, definitely starting a couple years ago, to change the language around how we talk about it and to make sure that we were trying to be inclusive and make sure people knew that, like, this is for everyone. There's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like, sure, I'm the leader of this group, but when you come to my run group, it's not about me. You know, my running goals for the day are non-existent because my running goals on those Wednesdays when I'm leading people is the needs of my participants. So if I need to run whatever pace I need to run to suit the need of who's shown up that day, you know, that's what I do. People apologize to me all the time.
That's just leadership right there. Having that mindset, though. Like, like coming in with that mindset of adjusting pace and looking out for the group as a whole.
Yeah, I just go where the need is because people apologize to me all the time. Oh, I'm so sorry you have to run slow with me. I'm like, no.
You're here. That's all that matters.
You're the participant. I'm the leader. My goal is that you have a great run. Right? And I'm having a great run because I'm helping you, so that's all I care about.
And that post-run high, it must be nice,
Yeah.
extra rewarding for you to see everyone else have it,
Totally.
where everyone's so happy after a run.
And you know what? Like leading a group where you can get people of every different pace and ability come to one run. We've definitely had some successes and failures in how to properly lead a group like that.
Yeah.
But me and my run group helpers over the years have definitely, we got a system now. We've had some, you know, learning experiences where we have a way where we can lead someone who comes who's barely started running and someone who's an experienced runner, and we all will run the same run and no one gets left behind. Everyone gets the run that they want, you know, but it definitely took some trial and error to figure out how to lead that properly.
That's perfect. You know, if I were to like go back to social media and look at the inspiration that I find through, say, Instagram, a lot of it comes from my friends that are very active and accomplishing goals in their own discipline. And one of those people is Mattia with the Roadrunners, who here's an individual that just gives it her all. And when she is focused and has a goal set, like I would not want to get in the way of her in that goal because her determination is just at a whole new level.
She's a very passionate lady.
Very passionate and very skilled at what she does. Like her run times and her distances and her consistency is, you know, she's on her game. And it's really cool to see her want to pass that knowledge on to other people as well through her volunteerism.
But then, like, you know, when you look at people who are doing really well and sharing that, that's sometimes what people find intimidating as well.
I
right?
can see that,
because they'll say, oh, well, you know, like so-and-so, they accomplished their goal, like, oh, I can't do that, or I can't run that fast, or like, you know, my goal isn't as fast as their goal, so like I'm not a real runner, or I'm not as good as them. You know, and that's where mindset comes into play too, because you can choose to see that as intimidating, or you can choose to see that as, they did it, I can do it too, right? Or like, you can choose to see it as inspiring, right? And I've had a lot of new runners say that they're very intimidated by, say, like Strava, you know, because they don't want to see what other people are doing, because then they'll compare themselves to others.
What's that old quote? Is comparison is the joy of thief?
Oh, the thief. Yes, the thief of joy. The thief
of joy.
Yeah. The thief of joys. Yeah, totally, it is.
Yeah.
So
and
like,
I can see that, especially if you're injured.
Right.
And you see people still active, accomplishing goals. That has to be tough. Was that hard for you?
That was hard for me. Yeah.
Would you try to, say, when you're going through chemo and recovery, would you not log into Strava, just knowing that?
Oh no, I still would.
You're okay with it going in and?
Sure, and like, I think that being in that place gave me a new perspective of all that, because I definitely sometimes struggled with that toxic relationship with pace and performance before. Just always like, I need to be better, I need to be better, I need to be better, right? But why? You know, and I still want to push hard, and I still want to be my best, and I still want to improve. But I think my relationship with growth and improvement is much healthier now, because I've been in a place where I'm sitting there saying, well, I can't do anything right now, and my friends get to go out and do their best, and I have to watch them, and it makes you feel really inadequate, right? So then now I'm in a place where you have to choose to approach those things of seeing your friend doing really well, or seeing your friend's pace, or seeing your friend meeting your goal. You have to approach that in it being about them and not about being about you.
Smart. That's a very smart mindset.
Right. Because then it turns into encouragement and support, as opposed to like, oh, I can't run that pace, or I'm not as good as them. Right.
One thing, I love Strata. It's actually my favorite form of social media, because I feel
I enjoy it too. I get to cheer on my friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But you do have people that will post on Strata, and they'll be like, oh, you know, it ran at 18K, but it wasn't quite my fastest pace. And, you know, the last couple kilometers were a struggle. And they'll focus on like a couple of the negatives.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, you ran 18K.
Yeah.
Like you could have just, you know, ate dinner and put on Netflix, but you ran 18K.
Yeah.
Who cares what the pace is? Who cares if it's not your best time ever, or if you struggle
But
near
it's
the
you
end?
having to be at peace with that too. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who say won't put their slow runs on Strava, or they won't put their recovery runs on Strava, because they don't want people to see their slow pace. So, and I'm like, no, we need to put our slow runs or our recovery runs on Strava, because if we're always putting our just like our race paces or like our fast runs on Strava, you know, because we need to do all of those runs, right? Then it just like adds to the toxic, you know, environment that can be created there with comparing ourselves to others. But to be like, look, I ran a 5K and I ran it at this pace, you know, and that's my slow recovery pace, then people might be more comfortable with like, well, I can put my slow recovery pace on there too, because, you know, people aren't going to judge me. But, you know, you have to decide that that's the culture that we want on those platforms.
I agree, 100%.
Right? Yeah.
About 10 years ago in 2011, when I first moved back to Prince George, I wrote down about 100 inspirational quotes, and I put them on at work, in the office, on the bathroom mirror, on the fridge, everywhere. A lot of those quotes have ended up in like the recycling bin or misplaced or whatever, but I still have a few, and one of them is still on my fridge, and it's a Will Smith quote, and it says, "Life is about reading and running." And I always loved that quote from him from 10 years ago. And he actually just released an audio book, a physical book as well, about his autobiography. And he references that quote. And he said, when I talk about running, I'm not just talking about running, I'm talking about all exercise. And when I talk about reading, I'm not just talking about sitting down and reading a book, I'm talking about all education. And
so moving and learning.
Totally, yeah. So, and I resonated with that, and I still do to this day, and I still have it up in my fridge, is because I do firmly believe that every day you should dedicate some time to exercising your body and your mind in a variety of different aspects as well. And I call it a life hack, and I tell as many people as I can as possible, but like listening to audiobooks while you're running or lifting weights at the gym commuting.
Two birds.
Two birds, one stone. And I it's amazing. Like it takes a while. Some people need that music and that RPM, that or BPM to pump them up. it takes an adjustment to switch over to an audiobook or something educational, but the feeling that you get, if you go lift weights for an hour and you pump your mind full of information about a topic, any topic, you feel brilliant afterwards because you just worked out your body, you just worked out your mind simultaneously, and the ramifications are 100% positive from that. So I always love that quote.
Well, and like a lot of people will say, you know, we tell these lies to ourselves, right? Like, I don't have enough time, or like, I don't know where to start, or all that stuff. But like, if you just pick like one thing every so often to like add to your life, those little things can make big differences, right? You're already going for a dog walk by yourself, like, yeah, pop in your headphones, listen to something that's going to inspire you or motivate you, or learn something, or, you know, what's one little thing you can add to your life that will add more education or more exercise or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if you want to do something, like, you'll make it happen. So if you're making excuses, then maybe you don't really want to do it.
That's true. And I think if there's one thing that anybody should add to their life, and including Andrew back here, is to research the Wheelin' Warriors of the North and consider joining that team.
Yeah, they're great.
Because they've played a large role in your life for the past couple of years.
Yes.
Did you decide to join the Wheelin' Warriors of the North prior to or after
My husband
your
and I
chemo?
had talked about it for a while because we had seen them around and we were already both cyclists and we were already thinking about it.
That's why I wasn't sure, because you already had the cycling background.
Yeah, we had talked about it. We just like didn't actually bite the bullet and do it. And then I'm very goal oriented with my races, and I will always pick races to do every year and all that. And I was always encouraging him to do that or something like, you know, what's your goal, or what's a race you want to do, or an event you want to do.
You guys make a great training couple. Like, for sure. The motivation you give each other to train and just to be active.
I'm way more intense than he is, and he would tell you that too. But like,
But Tori's quite the athlete.
He
so,
is.
Yeah.
He will sell himself short, but he's good. But, you know, and then I think I was sitting in chemo one day, and he said to me, like, I've picked my event. I know what I'm going to do. And he's like, we're going to do the Ride to Conquer Cancer. He's like, that's what's important to me. That's what I want to do. He's like, you know, do you want to do it with me?
Nice.
Yeah, obviously. We still haven't actually done the in-person one because
Virtual
we registered.
Yeah,
we registered for the Wheelin' Warriors and the Ride to Conquer Cancer at the end of 2019.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was in the middle of chemo, and Karen Pichet and James came and visited me one day at chemo to welcome us to the team.
Nice.
And, they're fantastic.
Yeah. They're just like, sign here. And
Yeah. No, she brought me a card. So nice.
They're the best. Yeah.
And then Debbie was one of my nurses.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we
Awesome,
found about it too, because she's like, oh, you cycle? Have you ever considered this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
actually, we're thinking about it.
And she's such a badass on the bike.
Oh,
like, she's hard to keep up with.
She's a
Yeah.
powerhouse. And she'll like power up the hills with like a high gear too, and you're like, oh my god, the strength in her legs. She is
Impressive.
a machine.
Yeah.
But so then we were gonna do our first Ride to Conquer Cancer in 2020, and then that one didn't happen. And then we did the virtual one in 2021.
That's right. You did it in Jasper? Is
Yeah.
that right? Nice.
Because I was actually going to be away that week that the Wheelin' Warriors did it in Prince George.
Yeah.
So then Tori and I went to Jasper just together to go cycling in the summer a couple weeks before that. So then we did our 100K in Jasper. And then Tori also did the 100K with you guys on the day that we did it in Prince George too. But
Nice. He doubled up.
Yeah, he did it twice.
I mean, if you're going to do the virtual Tour de Cure anywhere, you might as well do Jasper.
It was
right in the
awesome.
Rocky Mountains.
It was awesome.
Some of the most beautiful scenery
At
in
70K,
the world.
we stopped at A&W, got some fries, and then kept going.
Yeah, load up on those cars.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was super fun. But yeah, it's the Wheelin' Warriors are a powerfully positive group because like instantly from joining, you just felt a part of this crazy supportive family. And I remember one day I was in the cancer center and I ran into James. And I hadn't met him at this point, but I had just registered for the team. And he came up to me, he's like, are you Gillian? I'm James, like, welcome to the team. And he said, like, you know, now that you're on the team, like, now we're family. And I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? He is the nicest person I've ever met in my life. Just like, you're on the team now, we're family now.
Just a beautiful human
Yeah, he's like,
being.
need something? Let me know. He's like, I work here. You know, if you're ever here and need something, tell me. And I was like, who is this angel?
Are you real?
Yeah.
Am I dreaming right now?
You? Yeah. So yeah, it's just this lovely collection of motivated people who want to go out and do activity, but they also want to do it for a cause.
Yeah.
You know, and then we're out there having fun and supporting each other and being active, but then we're raising money for, you know, the BC Cancer Foundation.
Yeah.
And
which is close to your heart.
I just feel like I've gotten so much from them. All I want to do is give back to them, and
that's why you've already started your fundraising for 2022.
I have.
I see. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, you're in the top 10. And I always tell people, and I say, if you want 100 new friends who are all positive, uplifting people,
join the Wheeling Warriors.
Join the Wheeling Warriors of the North, because it's the most supportive group imaginable.
And
everyone's got each other back.
Everybody who joins already knows how to bike.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I came into it with a cycling background, right? But a lot of the people that come into it, they don't already cycle.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, people like Ron, like, they have all that prepared. They'll take people out and teach them, and they have special days where they take people out and, you know, slowly build up the distances so people can learn.
Yeah, and Ron's story was similar. He hadn't been on a bike for decades, and he gets on a bike, and now he's one of the most accomplished veteran riders in the country.
Powerhouse. But he wants people to learn too, which also like shows you that like, oh, just because I'm not as fast as Ron doesn't mean I can't ride with Ron.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, because he wants you to learn and he wants you to enjoy yourself, so he's gonna get out there with you and help you learn, so you're gonna enjoy yourself, and like, you know, don't be intimidated by riding with people like that, because they're there for you.
Exactly. And people can be intimidated by the ride itself.
Yeah.
Or the obligation to raise $2,500 to the BC Cancer Foundation.
That can be intimidating, and definitely people are turned away by that as well.
Yeah.
But definitely the group fundraising helps with that as well. If you go do some of the like group fundraising things that Karen and Ron and that they set up.
Very well organized.
That helps a lot, because it's not all on your shoulders.
And people surprise themselves. They'll put out a post on social media being like, hey everybody, I'm a part of this Wheeling Warriors of the North team, fundraising for the BC Cancer Foundation. All of a sudden they just get inundated with donations from people they may not have even talked to for years and years and years. So people will surprise themselves both with the physical component of the bike ride as well as the fundraising. But what I love, it's the old saying is, it's all about the journey, not the destination. Like the last ride that we're all training for is fantastic. It's a wonderful event. But to me, the most rewarding experience of being part of the Wheeling Warriors of the North are all those training rides and all those fundraisers, the camaraderie, getting to know people from different walks of life, and like the feeling of community. You just can't beat that. So anybody who's listening and watching this podcast, join the Wheeling Warriors of the North. It will change your life for the better forever. And also the fact that all the money raised with Wheeling Warriors of the North stays in Prince George.
Yeah, you know what? That's huge, because we have the Northern Center. And like, I think a lot of people also think like, oh, all the money I'm going to raise, it's all going to go to Victoria or Vancouver, which, I mean, those people need help too.
Yeah.
But like, just knowing that like it's going to go to people who are getting treated in Prince George.
Yeah.
You know, and that is really big for our community, and that's a really big like motivation for people to join too. But yeah, like this year, I guess, 2021, it's still 2021, for my 30th birthday in March, when I was raising money for the 2021 virtual ride, I put my Wheeling Warriors like out to social media, and I said, I'm running 30 kilometers for my 30th birthday, and I'd never run 30 kilometers before. It's my first time doing that far.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm running 30 kilometers for my 30th birthday. All I want for my birthday is to raise money for my Wheeling Warriors account to go to BC Cancer Foundation. I raised $2,000 that week.
Wow.
For people giving me money to run 30 kilometers for my birthday. That was like where most of my fundraising came from last year, was me saying, I'm doing this run, donate to my Wheeling Warriors. Yeah.
You almost raised as much money as calories burned.
People came out of the woodworks. I know, like, it was amazing.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So I just want to go back and ask a couple more questions about the chemo, because I do feel that it's inspiring and motivational to people that might just be starting their battle, that might just be starting their journey. So a question I have is, if you were to look back and talk to the Gillian that was just about to start her first dose of chemotherapy, what would you tell her?
I think I would say, like, you know, it gets better. Like, yeah, this will end, right? Because I think that sometimes when you're in those really, really hard situations, you feel like that's going to be your life for the rest of your life. You can't look past that and imagine that your life will be differently than it is in that moment, because that moment is so like all consuming and it just brings you down so much. It's hard to imagine a time where that's not your life. So, you know, now that I'm 2 years out of being done chemo and my life is what I would want it to be for all intents and purposes, like, it does get better, it does end, you will be okay, right?
Yeah.
You know, so that's just hard to see in those moments.
Very hard to see.
Right?
Yeah.
Which absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
But
you also have a very, to me, I found it powerful, but you, in your blog, and I don't know if it was 2 blog posts ago or the most recent one, but you wanted to differentiate between moving forward
that was the one I posted last night. Yeah.
and moving on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
yes.
to me, I would have probably been one of the people saying like, now you're going to move on from this. It's behind you. How are you going to move on? But you wanted to emphasize the importance of moving forward,
Yes.
not exactly moving on. Can you elaborate that?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction to me, and I think it resonates a lot with people who've experienced many different traumas. Because, I mean, say you've even experienced a grief or the loss of a loved one, which many people have experienced, you don't want to forget that person, right? Like, I don't want to forget that I had cancer and that I had this really dark, difficult time, because that time for me was extremely transformative, and it taught me a lot of lessons, and I am 100% a different person because of it, right? However, I've suffered a lot of trauma because of that, you know, and a lot of loss and grief. You know, one of the main loss and grief things I've experienced in my life is fertility, right? At 28 years old, I had a full hysterectomy. I will never have a biological child. I will never carry a child, you know, and that's a huge grief for me and my husband that we are still dealing with, right? So I can't forget that those pains exist in my life, because I approach those pains and those traumas almost every day. So if I move on from those experiences and those traumas, I'm doing a disservice to the things that I've conquered and the things that I'm still conquering every day, right? And I'm shoving aside the things that I need to approach and acknowledge and deal with. I don't want to shove them down and move on from them. They're a part of me, and they're never not going to be a part of me. So I need to figure out a way to wake up every day and say, these things are here. They're present for me. I'm feeling them. I can't pretend like I'm not. So how do I acknowledge them, let them do what they need to do and have those feelings, but then also, again, choose the mindset that's going to serve me today. Be open about how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling, you know what, I'm really feeling sad about blank, talk about it. Tell people in my life that will listen, you know, and then move forward with the positive lessons and transformative experiences that now make me the person that I can be. And I can't be this person without all these things I've experienced. They've made me. Right? So I can't move on from it. Cancer will be a part of my life for the rest of my life, and I can't pretend that it's not. So that's the difference between moving on, which is shoving it aside and not talking about it, and moving forward and carrying those things with you every day. Like you would carry a loved one who you've lost. You know, you're going to remember them. You're going to do honor to them, and you're going to carry with them with you every day. You're going to move forward with the grief and the pain, and then figure out how to process it, and then figure out how to be the best person you can be every day. Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. I've thought about these things a lot.
So moving forward.
Yeah.
What's next for Gillian? What are some of your future goals? What's on the agenda in the future? What do you have planned?
Just continuing to grow emotionally and mentally, you know, continuing to go to therapy to learn better ways to process the things I've been through and my trauma. I mean, it's been a really key component to how I've learned to deal with things is going to a therapist, because, you know, they have the tools.
I think everyone should go to therapy.
Oh
I'm
my
just
God.
saying that right now.
If you have access to mental health services, because they're expensive, and I get that, but if you have access to it, everyone needs to go there. Even if you don't think you have something to work through, everybody's got something to work through.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's so stigmatized. Like, if a couple
Yeah.
or individual is going to therapy, it's like,
Yeah.
how did you screw up?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like,
What did you do wrong?
went wrong?
What's the
But it's like,
issue? Yeah.
why not have proactive therapy? You know,
Oh,
like there
100%.
might be some things that are bothering you that you didn't even know, but
Totally.
it all starts, like you
I've had
mentioned,
some
to talk about it.
days, even, you know, where I've been going to therapy after cancer, and I've had some days where I'm like, I don't feel like I have much to talk about today. Oh man, they always bring something out of you.
And it just pours out.
They know the right things to ask, and you're like, oh, I did have something on my mind. I didn't even know I did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I cannot say enough good things about it. But if we talk about it, then more people will be not scared to go, and then more people will go, and then it'll be less stigmatized, right?
Exactly.
It starts with us talking about it.
Some of my best friends go to therapy as a proactive solution.
Totally.
They say, I go to therapy proactively, so I don't need to go when something horrific
Right.
happens, and then I'm at a loss, and
Yeah.
then I'm trying to catch up.
Oh,
Like,
proactive is always better than reactive in every situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, continuing to work on myself, continuing to grow, continuing to enjoy my training and have fun with it, and strike a balance between pushing myself and having fun with it, right? Because there's a balance there. There's a balance there. And just looking forward to hopefully racing again when I feel physically comfortable, but I also feel comfortable with the world and going back to races, because I'm not super comfortable with it yet,
Yeah.
but soon.
Well, look out, triathletes listening and watching, because
Yeah.
Gillian's coming for you.
But and just enjoying my family life and my husband and my pets, and yeah.
Well, Gillian, I think you're an amazing role model
Oh,
for
thanks.
so many, and whether it's the students you're teaching, your fellow Wheel and Warriors of the North teammates, the PG Roadrunners, or just the community in general, you've inspired so many people, myself included.
thank you.
And, you know, the strength and the resilience that you've shown has just been tremendous. And so I want to thank you for
Thanks.
that. But I also want to finish with a question that we ask
Oh.
all of our guests.
Okay.
You're number 30.
I've listened to your podcast, so I think I know what it is.
Oh, so you might have some preparation.
Oh, gosh, okay.
This question actually stumps a lot of people.
Okay.
So, if you were to have a conversation with any Canadian in history,
Yeah.
alive or dead, somebody that could be from any industry or walk of life, or an athlete, a comedian, a scientist, whoever, just any Canadian, who would that Canadian be and why?
Well, I think this is probably a common answer, but we talked about him already, but probably Terry Fox.
Nice.
I just feel very connected to his story and his experiences, and his story makes me feel very thankful to live in Canada. And I know he's Canadian too, but like to have the healthcare that we have, to have the social programs that we have, to have all those things that we have that, you know, we don't have to pay out of pocket, because I'm thankful for that every day. And just knowing more about his personal experiences with cancer, and just knowing more about his personal experiences with, you know, what he ended up doing with it. You know, because like I said, like I chose to take my experience and write about it to help people, and what he chose to do with his experiences was just so huge and brave, and I could not imagine having made that choice. It would have been absolutely terrifying, and I'm just so impressed with him all the time. Just how young he was, what he ended up doing, and the legacy that he created, and just how we are still talking about him, and we're still running for him, and we're still raising money for his foundation. It's just such a proud Canadian moment that I would just want to know more about him. And yeah.
Well, you know, Terry Fox is the most common
You think so?
answer
Yeah.
that we have to that question, but not once have we had such an elaborate,
Okay.
thoughtful explanation why.
I think about him often.
You know, so do I,
Yeah.
because he is the personification of the old quote that life is about 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you react.
Yes, yes.
And
100%.
you, my friend,
Yeah.
are reacting extraordinarily well
Thank
to
you.
anything that comes your way.
Thank you.
So I'm expecting big things from you in the future, and I can't wait.
Me too.
Gillian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome conversation. Really appreciate
Yeah.
it. Andrew, hit the Studio 720.